Growing reaction, though, this morning on President Biden's coronavirus speech last night.
That's right. President Biden didn't mention former President Donald Trump by name, but he did take several swipes at his predecessor. He blamed him for the current crisis. Take a look.
A year ago, we were hit with a virus that was met with silence and spread unchecked. Denials for days, weeks, then months. That led to more deaths, more infections, more stress, and more loneliness.
Joining us to discuss the speech is Jason Miller, senior advisor to the 45th president. He joins us live here on National Report. Jason, thanks for being with us here. Let's just start by getting your overall reaction to President Biden's speech last night. Again, that line that we just played that kind of stands out. The response was met with silence when it comes to the coronavirus response. Your thoughts?
Well, good morning, and thank you very much for having me. Even the Washington Post fact checker hit Joe Biden this morning, saying that he offered a lot on emotion but very little on details. And, you know, when I talk about the Biden presidency, I really refer to it as the participation trophy presidency, meaning that Joe Biden thinks it's just enough to show up and he's going to get some kind of award. He sets the bar so low that it makes it almost impossible to not meet expectations. One thing he didn't mention last night in his speech is that President Trump's Operation Warp Speed already had us distributing 1 million doses of the vaccine a day. So Joe Biden's goal to have 100 million doses in 100 days, President Trump already had us on track to go and do that.
You say, yeah, you're alleging here that he sort of laid the foundation for it, and based on the rate at which people were receiving vaccinations, it would add up with that 100-day goal here. Also in the speech, something that was not mentioned, it was a brief speech and address to Americans here, but no mention of China, of course, where U.S. intelligence officials believe the virus originated here. Does that sort of give us a preview as to what we could expect for accountability from the Biden administration when it comes to China and its response to the coronavirus?
Well, great question. In fact, we're seeing next week when Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State, meets up with Wang Yi in Anchorage, the fact that Joe Biden is having his team meet in Anchorage and not in Washington shows that he's already trying to be deferential to the Chinese. He's already capitulating to the Chinese. I spoke with President Trump about this last night, and he said he would never go and do that. He would make the Chinese come over to Washington to have the meeting. But even worse than that, last night Joe Biden criticized President Trump in a little kind of a backhanded way, implying that he had done nothing against COVID when President Trump shut down the travel with China and with Europe, got the Defense Production Act to get going on PPE as the cupboard was essentially bare. And as I mentioned before, Operation Warp Speed. In fact, on Joe Biden's inauguration day, they distributed 1.5 million doses of the vaccine. And so for Joe Biden to take it that step further and imply nothing was done, I think is pretty shameful. And he's not going to do anything against China. I think we all see the handwriting on the wall there.
You know, we've often been able to look on the former president's Twitter feed to sort of get an idea, an immediate response to breaking news of the day. I'm sure he would have shared some tweets following the speech last night from President Biden. But of course, he doesn't have that ability to do so, knowing that his account has been restricted. Have you heard from Donald Trump in response to what's coming out of the Biden administration so far?
Yes, in fact, I was with President Trump last night. You know, to your point there, this is something where President Trump is always thinking through these things. And I asked him if he wanted to put out a statement or weigh in or comment on what Joe Biden was doing with his national address last night. He said, nope, if I go and jump in, then they're going to go and match it up for here's what Joe Biden is saying versus here's what I'm saying. Let's let Joe Biden just go out there on his own and watch him faceplant. Actually, the faceplant was my word. President Trump didn't say that, but effectively allow him to faceplant. And that's what we're seeing. Even the mainstream media outlets this morning were pointing out the fact that Joe Biden didn't mention the great work that the Trump administration had done. And I think folks are starting to realize, hey, Joe Biden is asleep at the switch. He thinks he can barely show up and, again, get the award just for participating. And the other thing we didn't hear last night, anything about the crisis at the southern border, which, by the way, Joe Biden created.
And that does continue to be, in fact, a crisis. There are reporters from a variety of media outlets who are pointing that out based on numbers of unaccompanied minors at the border, as well as overall migrant numbers. Let's talk about, again, the president's future plans here, sort of the impact he could have on politics in America. He is in a sort, acting behind the scenes right now, releasing potential support for Senate candidates in Georgia. My mind goes to Herschel Walker. He released a statement here. But also let's focus on potentially 2024, thoughts of his own running as well. You've said that former President Trump has not ruled out keeping Mike Pence as a potential running mate in 2024. Does that have the support of the base to keep Mike Pence on the Trump ticket?
Well, great question. And one of the things to also keep in mind is that President Trump, yes, while he has said that he will consider potentially a race in 2024, he hasn't made a decision yet. And so since he hasn't made a decision, he hasn't made any sort of decision about what might happen with even, say, a running mate. There's been no talk internally of swapping out or going in a different direction at the VP spot. And again, we haven't even had a formal discussion about 2024 because President Trump said, you know what, there's a lot of time for that right now. We have the midterms coming up. We got to win back the House. We got to win back the Senate. We got to go win some of these governor's races, especially in blue states where they changed up the election laws. It would be a much different outcome if we had Republicans in places like Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, the Great Lakes states. But, you know, last night, NRSC chairman, the Republican Senatorial Committee chairman, Rick Scott, the senator from the great state of Florida, had dinner with President Trump where they talked about where they can match up on a number of the candidate recruitment efforts, how we can win back the Senate. It was a very good dinner, shows that the president and the NRSC and Senator Scott can work together to go and win this back for Republicans. But the one thing President Trump wants to make sure, no money for rhinos, and also we need to recruit America First conservatives.
Has Mike Pence met with the president?
They've spoken a couple of times since President Trump and Vice President Pence left office. I do not believe that they have actually met in person yet. I know the Vice President is traveling around and doing a number of things with his own TV projects, but they have had a couple of conversations.
Okay. That is Jason Miller answering some of our questions here on the program. Jason, thanks so much. Great to see you. Take care.
Thank you.
We might let you have some independence by Independence Day. I mean, come on, we're Americans. We actually embrace freedom. We're actually all about freedom. And here we have the government. We might let you get together with some of your family. And meanwhile, while we might let you have some freedom come Independence Day, we're going to spend $1.9 trillion. That 91% is not for COVID relief. And, you know, we'll put things in there like we're going to have $1,400 go to felons, $1,400 a week go to federal workers whose kids aren't in school. The constituents I get the privilege of representing, they're not getting that deal. So that's the message coming from the White House. I think it's pretty tone deaf and pretty wrong.
Congressman, let me ask you something. When was the last time you were back home, and how open was it? Compared to what it is in D.C., because I go out in and out of D.C. all during the week, and if my experience is the same as yours, it's a lot different in two different places.
Yeah, and we don't have a wall and razor wire around the state capitol in Ohio either. So we're a lot more open, both relative to COVID and relative to letting the taxpayers get access to their capital, their state capital in Columbus, versus the federal taxpayers' access to the nation's capital here. So much more open. I've been in Florida a few times the last month. There it's really open. And frankly, I wish Ohio was much more closer to where Florida is than D.C. and some of these other places run by Democrats. And here's the interesting thing. You know, Joe Biden says we might get some freedom come July 4th, some semblance of freedom. Meanwhile, for the past year, government has told us, Democrat leaders in government have told us, you can't go to church, you can't go to work, you can't go to school, you can't go to a loved one's funeral. But the same people who impose those requirements on us and those lockdowns on us, they don't follow them. And the best example is the one I always point to. Governor Newsom in California can go to a five-star restaurant with friends and lobbyists. At the same time, he's telling Californians, you can't have Thanksgiving with your family. That's what frustrates Americans. And now to hear the commander-in-chief, the president of the United States, say, maybe by the middle of the summer, you might be able to hang out with your friends. CDC has already said you can. So that is, it just didn't make sense to me, and I think that's the takeaway many Americans had.
Yeah, and Congressman Jordan, you know, all the money from this rescue plan that's going to those cities and those states with these Democratic governors like Newsom, who chose to keep the lockdowns in place and damage the states, and now we're bailing them out.
Yeah, blue state bailout, lockdown state bailout. I mean, you call it what you want, but you're exactly. It's a great point, Heather. So much money is going to California. So much money is going to New York, where supposedly they were doing things perfectly. Well, when you look at the numbers, you got states like South Dakota and Florida with Republican governors that have much better numbers and didn't lock their state down, don't have the unemployment numbers that the blue states have, and actually have a flourishing economy. So that's what we need to get back to. It is time to go back to work, go back to school, go back to normal. The country is done with all this. We knew it was serious. We treated it as serious. We still do. But it's time to get back to normal, get back to freedom.
Hi, Emma Rechenberg here. If you like this video, there's a whole lot more to see on Newsmax TV. You can watch for free right here on our YouTube live stream and be the first one here each time our experts break down real news. Just hit that subscribe button, ring the bell icon, and stay with us on America's fastest growing cable news channel, Newsmax TV.